Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Fall of the House of X, which feels
No, we're not at those yet. We're just at the regular fall.
What?
Yeah, I know. I was trying to do all these witty tweets, and I was like, "This is the fall of X," but we're immediately going into the fall of the House of X, which coincides with the rise of the powers of X. And,
so much falling.
You're
Fine.
Nico Action.
I'm Nico. Find me at Nico Action. This is X's for show. I'm done.
And I'm TK. You can find me at TK Elemental.
And I'm your producer, Kevo. You can find me at Kevo Really. And since this is a comic broadcast, you can find me
in the corner.
in my producer corner.
And it's been a really interesting time to talk about X-Men and the word producer, because one of the things that I really want to hit on is how absolutely fucking fabulous my hat is. I need to say that someone who loves me very much just might have gotten me this unbelievable hat, and I just need to remind everybody.
I forgot to check in about this. Did everybody else get their hats?
No, not yet, because it's gonna be on camera. It's gonna be a family. It's gonna be a family affair.
Okay,
MJ's getting it crunk, right? So, the thing that I've been thinking a lot about with this run of X-Men, where we things that I think is really frustrating for me about the nature of where we're at with the X books is the role that the editors play, the editor-in-chiefs play, the role that is played by the bigger picture of this behind-the-scenes framework. It's become so mysterious, and it's starting to feel like you have to unravel that like an issue of Gods.
It's become mysterious. It's become really vital. We're seeing it touch the production of the TV movie world. We are starting to, as much as I like it, I have some cynical feelings when I see it sometimes, but as much as I can understand the cuteness and the sweetness of those regular adventures in poor taste X-Men Mondays, where Jordan D. White goes and answers a bunch of questions and has some banter and some witty rapport, and I think it's great to be accessible, but it's really tough when so much stuff happens that is very difficult to understand. And a lot of times the answer to this is difficult to understand, and it really kind of hurt my feelings maybe, or made me unsure that this is like a thing that would be healthy for me to keep reading. The response is, I'm not actually going to answer that question. You just have to trust that this was a great idea and it'll all be fine and you'll be so happy when it's over. And before I can answer that question, I've been fired from the office and moved to the not fired, lateral move to the Venom and Hulk office. But there were some questions about like, hey, the Hellfire Gala is pretty rough. And the response was just kind of like, you guys don't trust enough. And then it's like, when you leave, I sort of think maybe I was right. And somebody said like, you have to leave because.
Okay. Yeah. It's a tiny little tag symbol that I got going. Right. And that tiny little tag symbol is, it's a lateral move, the way being transferred from the 11 o'clock news in New York to the 10 p.m. news on the local affiliate in Pittsburgh is a lateral move. And I do not mean that as an insult to Jordan D. White. I kind of think that this is an example of where maybe Marvel needs to be thinking a little bit bigger. Because when I said what I said earlier, I wasn't coming for editors, right? I'm trying to express that, like, these editors are now players. And we all kind of went, look at how they kind of forgot about Teenie Howard. And then we all went, look how they forgot about this person. Or, wow, it sure is the Steve show these days. Everything's Orlando Fox. Which, by the way, Orlando Fox is the name of every daddy I ever flirted with on Scruff. If it was in Disney World, his name was Orlando Fox or something, but we see those trajectories. We see those identities of a character's transformation as much as I meant to say an editor, as much as we see it for a character now.
Well, yeah, I mean,
exactly.
I think character was not much of a Freudian slip because they become obviously the Jordan D. White that we know through, Adventures in Poor Taste interviews and
I loved her more than anybody this side of Bianca Dell, but when Joan would show up on the Tonight Show, you weren't like, Joan Rivers must have some new fucking thing out. You were like, she's here to be with her friend. And that is a little bit, I'm not like, oh man, Adventures in Poor Taste. They're getting inside information that nobody's had since WikiLeaks. It's like your buddy Adventures in Poor Taste gets you.
Yeah, exactly. Which is actually kind of speaks to one of the other things that I'm feeling a lot of, which is, and to drive onto some other points you mentioned, seeing the lack of Leah Williams and Teenie Howard. Leah Williams for a long time. Teenie Howard more recently not doing the Betsy Braddock Marvel.
No, it's Orlando Fox.
No, it's Orlando Fox. And I just feel like the boys club vibe is very much there and very much not my favorite. And when you talk about like, hey, Adventures in Poor Taste scoops every single piece of X-Men news because probably this guy who is their friend goes to them. And we've seen this happen throughout comics. There are podcasts that get really fantastic interviews because of the connections that they have to people.
They happen to know the murderer.
Exactly. A very important show that we're all listening to. Fantastic reference. And that's all, industries have networking. That is all fine and dandy. It is acceptable. But in all of this, it has just felt like, hey guys, we're giving you more unprecedented access than ever. No, you don't ever get to judge what you're seeing because even though you have more access than ever, you don't have anywhere near the whole story. And so if you feel a certain way and it's positive, that's great. Ride those vibes out and just keep going. If you don't like it, you don't actually know what's happening. And even though you think you might, because we're telling you more than we've ever told you before, you don't, because you not liking it is a sign that you don't know anything. So just sit there, be quiet, and let this all play out. Which is a weird... There's never a point at which anybody's like, it's very possible you're not going to like everything that happens by the end of Fall of X. And when we get there,
no, they would not. They would never. No, why would you?
Exactly. But then my thing is like, if that's the case, if we're never going to have that moment of reckoning, I don't really need regular updates. Regular X-Men Monday updates with answers, because those aren't real answers. We're not having a real conversation. We're having a PR jump where you're hoping to whip up some joy, and if you don't whip up any joy, we're walking away. That's imbalance to me.
And I want to say two things about all of this.
Yeah.
Number one, one of the things that really comes to mind with what we're talking about is that we now live in an advancement of fan culture, right? So I mean, when you said more unprecedented access than ever, you're rightish. I mean, you're correct. Yes, that's what they say, but like, you're right that the lie is that it's only true-ish. Right. Because part of that I think about is like, Drag Race has Untucked, and Untucked has a pretty, famous motto of, without Untucked, you're only getting half the story.
If you're not watching Untucked, you're only getting half the, yeah.
But the other side of it is sort of like, if you're watching Untucked, you're getting double brainwashed because it's the same people feeding you the same narrative.
Right. It's not as though they allow one fan to stick a secret camera somewhere and then that just gets broadcast no matter what is said or done. The same people that just edited the show you watched where some horrible villain won the challenge, then edit the Untucked where the horrible villain gets some story about their dead mom so that you don't think of them as a villain for 5 minutes, so that there's more dramatic tension towards the end.
Am I arrogant? Do you think I'm arrogant? Do you think I'm arrogant? I said what I said. Anyway, Oh my God, my favorite sentence in the history of television is I said what I said. Anyway, the other thing about this that I really want to touch on from your comments that I love so much is one of the things that we have found ourselves in with the state of comic fandom at the moment is so much of fandom shapes the reactions that we sort of get from these bigger movements, right? Because like whether it's through like Snap, right? So something I saw that I thought was really cool was both Snap and Puzzle Quest both got tie-ins to the same upcoming Marvel product, and I got like an email telling me all about it, which I just thought was really great. So, there's 1,000 different ways they try to synergistically get us product and idea and information. I've never been more confused about the company, the brand identity, the look that they're trying to express to me with what's going on right now. It's basically a television network lineup just at the X-Men. And the problem with that is a television network doesn't tell a single story. Like, I can't be like, this is Hulu's theme this week. Did everybody catch the 37-part crossover on Hulu?
And I guess I think now is a good time to bring in our big question, because I think we're already answering it, but it is basically, how are you feeling at the end of Fall of X? And I mean, this is exactly it. I'm feeling all of the frustration that we've just talked about with sort of, because I've been, I didn't like where Hellfire Gala went. I thought it was, it bordered on traumatic to read as a queer person. And there was a lot of response that was just like, hey, our job is to challenge you, which I don't buy. But then it was also like, you need to keep reading because I think you'll be really happy. And fair point. You do have to keep reading. But now I'm at the end. I don't know that I'm super happy.
And I'm so glad you brought up our reactions to Hellfire Gala, because I'm with you. I'm kind of like, I don't know. I think about like hear me out, everybody. There is a way in which the Bloodhound Gang outperformed Prince. Let me talk about this. When I think about the Bloodhound Gang's The Bad Touch, a song that gets you put on a list just for looking up on Spotify. What ultimately works about this very horny, dirty song is outside of the Depeche Mode-esque production, outside of the super sexual, nonsense where they're clearly trying to give a vibe. It's actually a catchy song. Like They actually did their job. It's a well-made song at the end of the day. The other day when TK was here hanging out, spending the holidays with us, right? Where this beautiful hat made it into my life. We watched a video of every time Prince charted in the Billboard Top 100. And don't get me wrong, I'm not here to knock Cream, but there's some stuff like in the early 90s where it's like Prince and the New Power Generation, where the song is basically called him a chomp on that butthole. And like, it just isn't a hit. And it's because he is just being so explicit. Like some of these songs are called like Areola Diamond Princess. And you can understand where that failed while The Bad Touch succeeded. And that's Hellfire Gala for me. I'm so sorry. That's Hellfire Gala for me. It's, let me chomp on your butthole when it should be The Bad Touch.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. I think a lot of this is... I almost want to say I reject the premise only because I'm like, I don't even think we should have done this in the first place. We shouldn't have even produced that song. But like, okay, if you felt this is what you needed to do, I get it. I get the idea that adversity is a big part of comics in general. Like there always has to be a villain. This was just such an elaborate scheme to just kind of almost to tread water without saying you were treading water for 5 months.
It's that idea that maybe they can keep stretching the notion.
Yeah.
What if we build up a prelude to the prelude to the prelude?
Right. And the fact that they call the next thing the Fall of the House of X, sort of is exactly that, where I'm just like, well, what even was I just doing then?
That bit the horse, that ate the dog, that ate the cat, that ate the rat, and I'm done.
Yeah.
It's, the other thing that this also conjures up for me is a parallel experience with what brought me in to this era. For those of you who haven't been longtime listeners, those of you who are, fans of a different iteration of the show, I was lured back to modern comics. I hadn't bought a modern comic other than Daredevil, which I always collect. I hadn't bought, even if I don't read it, it sits in a pile. I hadn't bought a modern comic in like 3 years, 4 years. I just quit. I couldn't do it anymore. It just made me so mad. And then Krakoa happened, and I was there in an instant. Oh, hey, Allie, Allie, it's a hammer, don't hurt me situation. Allie, you are our galactic, so no one could ever hurt you. Welcome to the show. We think you're so great. So the premise of Krakoa brought me back to modern comics. And as I'm reading it, and I'm seeing that there's like everybody talking about how like we knew Krakoa was coming. Of course, nobody could have known it was going to be, so revolutionary. Because if everybody was like, oh, it's Hickman, it would definitely be revolutionary. Gods. So the thing I now wonder is, how long ago did this become a Rosencanny? When did this get we'll do whatever you want because we're going to reboot it anyway?
Yeah.
When did that edict go into effect?
Yeah. Yeah. I have questions. And at this point, the thing that I'm really going with, like that I'm working through, is I don't really expect good answers. I don't expect answers I could trust. And I don't expect answers, period. I don't even know that I want them, but if I were to go pursue them, I don't know that I would get anything out of it at this point. And it's just kind of sort of trying to figure out where we go.
No, the answers always matter. I need a book about it.
I mean, that's a huge part of my brain. It is that exact voice is screaming in my head, but I'm just sort of like, I can't keep doing this over and over again, especially when it feels like we can't have a healthy status quo that appeals to, I think, what makes the X-Men great. And that's a longer, bigger conversation. But, I sure know that we've been hearing a lot more about X-Men 97 and then what's going to happen after X-Men 97 as the mutants start showing up in the MCU than ever before.
But if you want to get excited about X-Men 97, you might want to check out our upcoming video of me painstakingly building that beautiful, beautiful X-Jet.
Yes.
I do a live build. It took me about an hour and 10 minutes, which is a little slower than I would have liked. But I'm telling you right now, the amount of navy blue made me feel colorblind.
That's not bad for no prep time, though. So,
I'm so sorry, though. The smartest person that tells me what to think, Tori, just wait in. This poor human. Tori is not an Encyclopedia Torcanica.
Yeah.
But
Tori, this would be like the worst possible place to jump in.
Yeah.
And I think it's like we've got till probably May before the next place where I think it might even be possible, let alone.
I think they said it's July. I think they said From the Ashes is July.
Sure.
How do we feel about that and events like this being so off-putting to new readers?
Who is it off-putting to?
You just said.
No. It's off-putting to Tori. But
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But because like for every Tori, there's a Rebecca. And Rebecca is a modern, equally educated, equally competent, dynamic fan with an extensive history in various forms of fandom. And she might think that this is great. I think the reality is we know Tori. and we know this is not the moment for her.
No, I mean, I don't think I'd tell Rebecca to jump on here either. I think From the Ashes is probably it. I think a little bit before that, because there's stuff like X-Men Forever coming.
Hold on. I need a second. I have to make my fake Rebecca account to start spamming the chat.
Yeah, please. And also,
She would be that girl.
Let's jump in and start talking about some of these books.
Sure. Can we start with Immortal?
Well, yeah. I mean, we're gonna start with the ongoings and the big
There's a
three.
script, sir.
Computer.
Wait.
Series contributor Jonah has my computer right now.
Well, and that's but you guessed perfect. We are starting with the big three ongoings, which
Rebecca
are
with the good X.
oh, we love her. We got X-Men, Immortal X-Men, and X-Men Red. Those were our guiding light going through this. We knew these were continuing after the Hellfire Gala. Go for it.
I'm just ready.
No, I mean, like, that's kind of all we had. We knew these were continuing. We were getting all of these minis, and the minis were just like, this is chaos, which we'll talk about soon. But these all have long, both X-Men, Immortal X-Men and X-Men Red ended at 18, but they had been already going a year before this, and X-Men's going to go on a little bit longer. But yeah, I mean, go for it. What do you got with, did you say you want to start with Immortal?
Well, I want to make a comparison here, because like something that I realized is like with Immortal, this is the first time that I came to recognize the flavor of Gillen's differences. Like, I think Gillen is a very multifaceted creator who is, wildly different project to project. But like, this was the first time I was like, there's the Gillen beat. Got it. I think guys like Gaiman are a little bit more on the nose in their beat for beatness. Anybody who read Morrison's Green Lantern, I mean, it's new X-Men with power rings, right? But when I read this and I read the ending of Gillen's Immortal, I was like, oh, now I get it. This is a Gillen thing. And regardless of the ending, he has his orchestrations that he wants to hit. And I think that's where I was like, oh, this can't be cohesive. And to make a quick comparison, there's a show that I don't know most people have ever heard of it. It was a little known show. It's called The Golden Girls. And The Golden Girls had a spinoff called Empty Nest. And Empty Nest had a spinoff called Nurses. And Immortal is Golden Girls. And in so many ways, Red is Empty Nest. They feel like equally important ideas from two different gender perspectives. And then there's X-Men, and it's Nurses. And I read it because it's the thing that's on at 9:30.
It's the Cleveland show of animation domination.
What's really wild,
It is the Cleveland show, Kevin. It is exactly the Cleveland show starring Doctor Doom.
I really loved Immortal when it started. I thought Gillen writing The Quiet Council made a lot of sense. And I really thought he was going to put a little Gillen spice into a very immutable status quo about like the politics of running a nation, with maybe some hints sprinkled in that because this is such a big project, couldn't really happen for 2 to 5 years. But it immediately became the Sins of Sinister show, which became the now Mother Righteous show. But
wait, isn't her name Rebecca?
Is it? It's something like that. Rebecca Essex? No, it's not. Is it? It might be.
We're gonna pretend.
It is Rebecca. Fuck.
I win.
Fuck. Shut it down.
Oh my god, I'm the singularity.
This last issue, there was a thing going off in my head, and I was just like, great tag, Rebecca with the good Essex. I'm obsessed. Thank you, Tori, and thank you, Kevo. There was stuff going off in my head that I just like wasn't. We're in huge spoiler territory, by the way, people. So get out now if you.
Your milk is going bad.
He's pulling Gillen's, he's pulling Ewing's Defenders stuff. This Dominion Essex is referenced. Enigma is referenced a ton in Ewing's Defenders. He's doing a really cool thing. It just again is not what we came here for. This has nothing to do with Orcus. It has nothing to do with the mutants being kicked off the island, and it's a bummer because this is now a really interesting storyline to me, and I'm gonna post a really fantastic thread on the X's for Show Twitter that I'm reposting another user gives a really good detailing of what happened at the end of Immortal and how it is related to Defenders Beyond, how the Enigma, who is we now understand the original Nathaniel Essex, is basically something that's more powerful than the One Above All. So this is like huge, deep Marvel lore that he's doing in the midst of the biggest downfall of the X-Men to a fascist minority group that we've ever seen. And I love what is happening, but I'm just like, I'm trying to figure out how we're dealing with Moira, the greatest self-loathing mutant of all time, and the army of robots she has amassed to kill everyone. I just wasn't really planning to stop and do deep Marvel cosmological religious lore. And so I'm just, as much as I really love it, I'm just frustrated because I'm like, right, but I do need to kind of put a period on this whole, there are fascist robots everywhere convincing humans that anybody that's different than them should die.
Let me tell you why I'm sleepy and why I shouldn't have to do homework in religious studies to enjoy my No, I'm kidding. I'm the guy that thinks that fiction should kind of have a homework component. That's why I do the show.
Yeah.
But here's where the difficulty comes in, right? Every now and then, I'm kind of like, I have this amazing thing I'd really like you to check out. And, a person's like, I checked that thing out. It was awful, dude. And then I'm like, no, let me tell you the reason that these 3 minutes make that whole movie incredible. I've been secretly trying to get TK to give later career Alanis Morissette a chance for the last like 5 months now.
I already gave her. I continue to give her a chance. You played one song for me today.
That was about to say. I'm secreting it in now. And then I was even like,
it's a song I already heard. It's a song I like.
Well, every time I'm like, let's go see Alanis in concert, you're like,
yeah, that I'm not interested in doing.
That's what I'm saying. Anyway, so, it's like that where you're like, no, I promise you, this one thing proves the whole theory. I feel like Immortal causes so much work. Immortal makes me sleepy, and not in a bad way, but it makes it very difficult to dial into it. I'm not necessarily looking for my books to hold my hand, but when so much of the line is a chore, honestly, a chore, the quality, it being so demanding, means that there's no fun place. Like, I need a fun place to go in these books, and there isn't one. And the best of them is exhausting. In fact, the best of the two of these are exhausting. Red is just as exhausting.
Yeah. And I kind of feel the same, but in the opposite direction. I want to do Immortal. I'm not interested in doing Orcus, especially because it's gone on so long, and I don't think is really the serve and the threat that everybody thinks it is. it's something that you've brought up a number of times before, where it's just like those people see Dr. Stasis and they're not equally as grossed out and freaked out. They're like, that's the guy we're gonna follow, not these mutants that like have been perfectly nice and just isolationist, but this weird, not pale but like alabaster skinned freakish man.
Yeah, you're not like, oh, he has a disability, judge him. You're like, he is literally not a human creature,
that's a monster
of any comparable form.
Yeah. So no, I don't really believe that. And like the fact that they're like the pedals, but then they're like the narrative pedal, which I keep expecting to have, like they are actually doing reality rewriting, which is happening in X-Force with Mikhail and the Chronicler. So I'm like, why don't they have those guys in? Meanwhile, it's just their PR wing, which is great, very cool, but they keep talking about it like we're playing 4D chess with our narrative pedal, and Firestar just like takes it over in 20 minutes, and she's like, what if we did a bad bitch campaign?
Yeah, okay, the DLC on Firestar in this game is absolutely, it's nerfing other things. It's OP as shit. It
was fun. It was just like it further diluted this idea that in August, when I was like, really, we're doing Orcus takes over the world, I should invest in this. And again, the writers and editors were like, don't judge it. This is how it has to be. This is the greatest enemy the X-Men have ever had. Get into it. And then everything they wrote and put out since about Orcus is just like, I guess they have a lot of money.
Yeah, what is this Jada shit that everybody's pulling all the time, where they're like, don't judge it, wait and see where it goes. And then 5 months later, we're like, hi, so this is where you said wait and see where it goes. And they go, look over there. And then they run right out of the panel.
Yep.
What is happening? Like, has anybody here, anybody seen this preview for New X-Men in, what was it, November? December? Anybody
Which
seen
one?
it? That New X-Men thing where they're like, coming soon, preview in December.
Is this? Oh, right. Yes, yeah. Sorry, that we never got.
That it was in the AOA font.
Yeah.
Did they just think that we would forget because we're sleepy?
And because they've inundated us with so much stuff. But to not dwell too much and to pull back on something you said earlier, X-Men Red was the best.
I agree on a quality level. I personally, it's so weird to say it this way, but I found it so overwrought in a very powerful way, in a very positive way. It just felt like it could not possibly be going on with everything else going on.
Well, and this is what I'm saying about
it ruined my enjoyment. Like, it felt like an AU.
This is what I'm saying about Immortal too. Like, these two books both suffered from this, and I will give them both a little bit of credit in that they really did try and say over and over again, also the Orcus stuff is happening. Like they kept referencing in Immortal, we're here because we all traveled out of the Krakoan gateways during the Hellfire Gala, and Orcus has taken over. We need to get back because Orcus has taken over. And it was the same thing in X-Men Red, where they kept saying, like, nobody is coming to help us. Orcus has taken over. Thank you, Kevo, for flashing this new X-Men ad that we have not gotten any sneak peek on.
This was one of our episode covers, actually. Yeah. Like, we featured it because it was so, like, what's up?
And I think this has turned into Weapons of X-Men.
Maybe even the original X-Men.
Well, I mean, original X-Men becomes Weapons of X-Men, so I think that's what happened. But this goes back to that idea of, like, I'm not going to keep listening to and trusting you guys and reading your Adventures in Poor Taste interviews if you are just going to, like, put this stuff out and then not address it and not say anything and just paste over it.
Does anybody else think if you look way too fast, it legitimately looks there like it says black anus?
I missed that, but maybe I'll guess. Oh yeah, no, I see it. There it is.
It's rough. It's rough.
But yeah, I mean, Red suffered from the same thing. Like, they kept having to say, nobody's coming to help us because Orcus happened, but we're telling this enormous story that sort of the idea that it's taking place at the same time is a lot. It's asking a lot of you. I might have really liked, if we cut Orcus out entirely and just did the stuff that's happening in Immortal X-Men and X-Men Red, that's 2 huge fronts for the mutants to be fighting on. That could have been enough. Like, we could have skipped Orcus entirely and still somehow kind of gotten to a Fall of X if we really needed to have it. Because keeping in mind, the original House of X and Powers of 10 is what promised us the Dominion, and that was going to be the ultimate problem that this era presented, is that, like, no matter how much mutants evolve, even if they lose or if they win, no matter how far into the future we get, you get phalanxes, then dominions, and you go outside of time and space, and there are just new rules entirely. So that we are coming to the fall of the House of X and the rise of the Powers of 10, and we're still sort of, I know we're going to talk about a bunch of this stuff, but that we're still so enmeshed in, like, but what about Moira and Dr. Stasis and MODOK and the trial of Scott Summers? It's a lot, but I really did love X-Men Red. I love bringing Apocalypse back. I thought this was, a triumphant story for Storm. It was, that rare thing where she's not just OP and unchallenged. There really are moments where you're like, I think she could fail. Obviously, the character's not going to die, but this could really bring her low. And I think too many writers are too scared to do that with Storm, so they kind of put her on a pedestal.
I really feel like I read Red differently. I thought Red was the book where everybody was so OP.
There's definitely that aspect of it, sure. But when everybody is, it kind of levels the playing field.
But for me, it really didn't. Like, it felt like these people were dealing... Like, here's my problem. If this is going on in Red, Orcus is not a problem.
Yeah, I agree with.
Orcus cannot be a problem. Sinister would have been caught. If you put Sinister in a room with any Arakan mutant, this would have been, because they would have been like, I smell that you're evil. We have to stop you. And it would have been done in an instant. When you so disproportionately power things, like, and that has been my negative statement about Red this whole time. And that's why I said it's so much about the production engine, not just about the writers or even the editors. It's about the engine itself. This book is so beautiful and so powerful and so magnificent, but it's sort of the same thing that Grant Morrison's New X-Men did to every silly story coming out in Unlimited at the time. This just makes, like, Fei Long feel illegitimate.
And I agree. I wish that it had actually been used as a vehicle to do that. I might have loved if we, like, paused this story, and if they really felt for whatever reason Orcus needs to happen, maybe this is like, we get to where we are now, and that's when the Genesis War starts, and everybody goes, oh, Orcus Orcus gets caught in the crossfire and just is obliterated in 2 seconds, because compared to the army of mutants and the armies of Amenth fighting, Orcus actually isn't that special. And so we're speaking to the same idea. Like, I like this stuff better. I don't super care for Orcus. And so putting this in that same realm, it both leads my eye away from what you're telling me is the big event, but then also it shows me, like, we also could have skipped this main event. We could have skipped Orcus entirely. And then go ahead.
Well, just because there's so many evil robots.
Yeah.
Evil robots make me sleepy.
I love evil robots, but I feel like we've lost. We're really doing, we were promised at the end of Inferno evil robots. What we've gotten since is a cyborg woman and a bunch of humans and other cyborgs puppeting the robots. But what Inferno promised us was the machines are all thinking and hate humanity as much as they hate mutants. The machines are a third sect that would like to take over. And what we've done since then is the machines have no autonomy and are just puppets of humans, and we will not be talking about any kind of machine ascendancy. And Allie, yes, they did do a very poor job of making Orcus interesting and threatening beyond just being violent bigots. Violent bigots are great. X-Men should always have violent bigots around to, be villains. They should be in Unlimited stories. They should be occasional threats. They should be who Generation X faces. But this just never convinced me that they were worth this much time and effort.
Moira just feels now like any random faceless bad guy introduced for this run. She has less
and Immortal basically started saying that. They basically, Charles and Sinister have a conversation that leads me to believe that we're going to get a Moira back that is a legit, whether she's good or evil, a flesh Moira that is more legit, and this robot will just kind of have been this obnoxious echo that was so over the top and just kind of plagued our favorite books for plot purposes. And by the way, in the face of all this, we've really not talked about X-Men at all, which has just been a series of vignettes, each less compelling because these are the most related to the Orcus storylines. But they're all just, everybody's in the sewers and they got to go on a mission. And it got so uninspiring that literally the entire story of issue 29 is in this cover. Everything you need to know is right in this image here. And you do not need to read it because that if the X-Men were fully going to war with Doctor Doom and that was a long-term story, you wouldn't be looking at one X-Men cover. You would be looking at an event. So that because you're just looking at one cover, this ends with a Doctor Doom being like, well, I'll see you if you frustrate me. And we just get them fighting these Latverian mutants one time and then it's all fine. And most of the storylines from issue 24, 25 to 29 are exactly that. It's one issue. Kitty Pryde goes on a stealth mission. Is it relevant? Kind of. She's very upset, which I get, but that's not playing out really much anywhere. There's not much story to be had there. Go look at each of the covers, glance at the issue, and you take everything away from it that you really need to.
All right, we ready to move on to the next stuff?
Yeah, so now we've got the the Percy corner. I love Ben Percy so much. I really do. I think his Ghost Rider is one of the best horror books of the past 10, maybe 20 years, maybe longer than that, maybe best of all time. I loved his X-Force to start. I love a lot about his X-Force. I don't know anything about this man, how he behaves, how he acts, what he's treated like, who speaks to him and how they speak to him. But this does a lot of times read to somebody who has to make up what's happening on his own time. Like, I don't want to do Fall of X. I'm going to do my own stuff.
And, I think that's even a part of why I feel so much like these books are completely unrelated. They sort of sit off in their own universe and do their own thing.
They do. And he did the thing that Ewing and Gillen were doing, which was to put a ton of references in. So once the Fall of X kicks off, Wolverine goes just on a bunch of buddy missions. Ghost Rider, Hulk, Captain America, Spider-Man. And he keeps saying that they have a lot to do with Krakoa. And because the Hellfire Gala happened and Orcus took over, he's like, I'm going to avenge them. I'm going to fix this. Also, fuck Beast. But this is just a chance for Percy to write Wolverine interacting with Ghost Rider, Hulk, Captain America, and Spider-Man. And they're fun. They're very fun. I think he writes a great buddy Wolverine Spider-Man. The Ghost Rider one is kind of the most offensive because they put it on the Fall of X list. Like, this Weapons of Vengeance was really important to Fall of X. And I still don't know what happened or why it was important, because it wasn't, right? Like, right? It wasn't important.
I mean, I can't tell, because comics used to need time for things to mean something. Like, you were supposed to have time to read it and buy it and then respond.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to have anything to do with anything, but, it was well written. Meanwhile, X-Force, we did, I give Percy credit for this one too. We resolved the Mikhail Rasputin story. I sort of hate how we did it, and I don't blame Percy for that, because I feel as though editorial did not push for that story to become part of the Orcus story. In the same way that, like, it was a minor thing, but we saw Horticulture, who were a consistent early Krakoan villain, these old ladies that are really obsessed with plants. We saw them work with Orcus, and we saw that they are a minor part of it. And Horticulture stories were a big part of early Krakoa stuff, as were Russian mutant relations being really bad. And so my expectation was eventually basically that Mikhail would cut a deal with Orcus of some kind. And instead, and again, this was my kind of, Mikhail has the chronicler who literally writes reality. And so the idea that Orcus has a narrative pedal, and doesn't employ or have any reference to the mutant that canonically on page does narrative as his mutant power, just seemed like a really big missed opportunity. And in the end, they resolved, thankfully, this enormous gaping plot hole, which was Mikhail Rasputin and what he was doing to Colossus. But it was all insular in its own world, having nothing to do with Orcus or the fall of X or the lack of Krakoa. And then in this issue 47, X-Force is just like, we are now also in the game. We're doing Krakoa too. We're doing Fall of X too. We're in for revenge. And there were some beautiful moments, because it also juxtaposed with the end of the Alpha Flight mini. But it just was one issue at the end of 5 months of writing about a cool thing that just had nothing to do with this thing they told us is the most important thing happening to the X-Men. What do I do with that?
Well, and I think part of the problem is that we spent 47 issues in this X-Force story that just kind of feels like it went nowhere. And so much of it borrowed into Wolverine and back and forth.
Yeah.
That it just feels like for it to have all gone nowhere was just kind of a big letdown.
And this is one that I can still say we'll see. I'm skeptical and very dubious, but this is a great X-Force team. It's a really good X-Force model. All of these characters could come out of it being like, I'm the Laura that was on X-Force. I'm the Colossus that was on X-Force. I'm the Sage that was on X-Force. I'm the Quentin that was on X-Force. And in that way, if I look at all these characters in 2 years and say, man, Percy really defined how each of these characters and or how the X-Force team functions for years to come. He set the standard. That'll give me something. It won't solve all of my issues, but that'll be something. It's more that I suspect that when From the Ashes hits, Laura's going to be like, miraculously, I suddenly like skirts. Sage is going to be like, I don't even use the internet. Colossus is going to be like, Mikhail who? And we'll never talk again about this period in time where they were a very cohesive ops unit with a structure and problems and, everybody having kind of submissions within the thing. And that's when I'll really be able to put my stamp on it and be like, this went nowhere. But I will say I did love this issue 47. I loved the moment with Wolverine and his son. I did shed a couple tears in that moment.
Nico, what do you think?
Oh, I was gonna say something about a little while. I just want to comment on with part of the thing in X-Force being this continuous idea that these characters are all in this very dark place. One of the things is it is a misery book, and so no character is in a warm place. even when they pull through something, they're pulling through something after something kind of traumatic. And it's a balance to something that happened here. I think that's kind of what happens when you are so set on designing a narrative in spite of everything going on around it. It's the same problem as Red. It's just we look at Storm's triumphs in Red. I don't think too many people are going to be like, I have to upkeep Birdo's Red status. I don't think that's going to be a huge, Beto, sorry, after so many years. Too many people are going to be, so worried about Sunspot. I think it's just going to be Storm. And I think likewise with X-Force, people are going to pick one person from this to latch onto. But for me, the bigger problem is I spent 30 years hearing people say, but a Mikhail story would be incredible. And then here was the 50-issue one. And it wasn't. Because I can blink reality different with my brain is a very difficult ongoing narrative villain.
I sort of sit on the fence on that one. I do think it was a good story. My thing is blaming editorial. I don't think it slotted in anywhere. I thought it had good bones of a story. I just think it never took off.
I'm just not sure what the story was. It was Colossus. I mean, seriously though, it was Mikhail controls Colossus to win.
Yeah, I mean, and this is why I was kind of like, they really needed to work with Orcus. Like we needed to have Russia work with Orcus because it started as the idea was Russia will not recognize Krakoa. Russia, like Latveria, we're just discovering now in issue 29 of X-Men, Russia does its own thing with its mutants and uses them in its own way and wants, it very much mirrored sort of Cold War ideas of how a nation and Russia would function. But then, what is their ultimate goal? Mikhail had the Cerebro sword at one point. What were they doing? We'll never know. And it would have been nice if the goal was like, we're setting up a mutant army that we can deploy at any time. We're setting up a new Red Room and it's all mutants. Anything like that. And there's like a hint that there could be an end goal, but we never see anything. And that does really kill it.
All right. On to our next bit.
Yeah. On to last and kind of least. These little side ongoings that were included in the Fall of X. Ghost Rider we talked about. I mean, I still love this book as an ongoing, but I don't know what it has to do with the Fall of X. No. And then, Invincible Iron Man. Cool story, I guess. One too many, definitely. And also, this is the one that didn't actually end because the big thing that it's promising us, the Mysterium Iron Man suit, we don't get in 13. One of the things I was actually most impressed by Fall of X is the fact that we wrapped everything up before December 31st, 2023. All of the minis ended. All of the ongoings that were going to ended. All of the ongoings that stayed had final arc stories, except for Iron Man, which on top of not having a final arc story or anything, didn't pay off its Fall of X biggest storyline.
No, I wonder how much longer Duggan will be on.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I don't know what we even have solicits for at this point, but this is fun. He and Emma are fun together. Tori asks, I'm only peripherally interested in Iron Man, so are these two kids still fake married? They are still fake married. I really do appreciate that it has stayed pretty fake. They seem to function very well as two rich idiots who don't do very well being poor idiots. And, fun team up potential. I think the Mysterium armor will be very cool, but I never asked for this book. I never needed this book. It's been fine. I don't have huge critiques for it, but I also don't have huge love for it.
This summer, I did a project where I read literally every issue of every Iron Man book from the year
Yes, you sure did.
to the year 2023. And, I think one of the things that I found really complicated about reading that much Iron Man is that Iron Man is a character that you just sort of graft current science onto at any given time.
Yeah.
And this was not that title. In so many ways, Duggan's Iron Man is about sort of relaying the furtherance of so much of Duggan's progressive storytelling his own progression, storytelling in the Marvel universe into Iron Man. We saw it a lot with his Deadpool. We see it throughout his Emma in Marauders. But, this point in Iron Man, this book is a vehicle, sort of like Tony's suit, more than it really is kind of telling a story.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see. I'm not really interested to see, but I am interested to see where it goes insofar as if we do From the Ashes and Emma just goes back to the mansion or whatever is happening. Is Tony keeping the Mysterium suit, and is that a new status quo for him? And what would that be like? Would Duggan keep writing it? Those will be questions. I don't know how much I care about the answers. And with that, I think that is all of our ongoings.
Wow.
All right. What on to next?
Now we got the minis. We got the many minis. And I believe we start off with the solos. Oh boy. What'd you think?
I mean, I think it's a really uneven bag. I think they all kind of do different things. It's really about the fact that each one of these is trying to play out a different story. The Jean one being ultimately really important is a really complicated thing to piece together with the bigger picture. That Uncanny Spider-Man is meant to be an adjacent Spider title, that Only Astonishing Iceman is meant to be the regular X book, that Ms. Marvel is meant to be kind of the New Mutants-ish book. It's a really interesting statement on the State of X solo titles.
Yeah, it's sort of, I almost kind of feel bad. I feel like there's a lot of shit talking for Iceman as a character, and then for this book, and by a lot of, I mean, just in my own head, that was really the book for me that I was just like, the Jean book dealt with these ongoing questions about her identity and the power that she holds, and who she is and what she's trying to do. And these are questions that Jean is always asking. And I think she often gets great writers to write for her and write about her. And the fact that this is working with Immortal as well, and will go into X-Men Forever. And it's probably looking like we're doing a new Phoenix story at some point in the future. That's a really big moment for her. The Uncanny Spider-Man story, Kurt getting a moment unlike any other, which we'll talk about in the future. The Bobby story, I feel like we're always asking the same things about Bobby, and it's always just like, oh, am I always going to be the goofball? Nope, I'm actually super. We just keep repeating the same loop where he's like, I'm not actually just a goofball. I'm actually the most powerful. I'm in the 16 most powerful mutants, and I'm insanely powerful. Can I use my powers? If it's plot convenient, sure. But if it's plot interesting to have me not be able to use them, that's what we're going with today. Also, I'm gay now. And we've done a few of these in, we've done them as storylines and ongoings. And I don't know that I needed a mini for it. It's great that queer men are writing a queer man. At this point, I'm much more interested in seeing women and women of color write women and women of color in the Marvel universe. So this was just this ended the exact same way that every single Iceman story where he goes, who am I? What am I for? What is my purpose? Am I just some dumb himbo that makes jokes? No, I'm actually really powerful. I beat the guy. I survived. I'm still your friend, the Iceman. Except now he kind of fucks whoever he wants, and so does his boyfriend. which is, I guess, sex positive.
I just don't think that he is funny.
Yeah,
I don't.
I
think
also don't
he
think he's funny.
I don't think that he quips. I don't think that he tells jokes. I think when he does, it's choreographed into the scene.
Yeah.
And one of the things is like a funny character is funny.
Yes.
Like when Spider-Man tells a joke, there is then like internal monologue of Spider-Man's that has jokes in it.
Yeah.
In his life, people are like, "You're funny, Peter."
That is the best example right there. Spider-Man's inner monologue is funny. And like, again, even Duggan wrote some funny Spider-Man in that Wolverine. Spider-Man is funny. That is the perfect example. Bobby's inner monologue, never funny. You are absolutely right.
So, when they try to tell us how funny Bobby is, or that he's, concerned that he's seen as a goofball, he was never even a goofball. Like, I reread those issues of X-Men not too long ago. And by those issues, I mean the Stan Lee issues and the X-Men First Class issues. He's actually not funny. He's just 14. So he's just younger. I don't know. I think Bobby is a character who would be best served. I think there isn't a character among the original 5 that wouldn't be best served by being the one who gets replaced by the original X-Man. But,
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I find myself very ambivalent and also very aware that he's just probably not going anywhere, which is fine. I hope there's that one person out there that's like, I've got the Bobby story.
I think Orlando Fox think it's their shared Steve brain.
Oh man, it's I don't even remember which of them. It's Orlando, isn't it?
I think this is Fox.
Oh God, hold on, I have to look it up.
Just zoom in on the cover real quick, Kevo.
Which one, Iceman?
Iceman.
Orlando.
This one's Orlando. Yeah.
Yeah. This ain't it for me, dog. But Uncanny Spider-Man was pretty it for me.
I really liked it, but at the same time, why did Blue come out during this?
That was weird. There we go. That's another one of these editorial decisions where they're like, you just need to pick up the additional issue that we have folded in here that you pay for, and trust us when we say this is a good idea that we've had. Was it an out for people that were like, I'm never going to read this, but really needed the information that was in it?
I don't know. And I think, I also think Blue was such a silly thing to be controversial. Like, there are things that we just kind of accept as canon. And even if they're not, fandom wins. And by fandom wins, I mean one day everyone will just accept that is canon. Period. This is how DC got away. I have done so much fucking research for this Green Lantern project I keep mentioning. Point that I need to make. Has anybody ever noticed how incredibly similar Sinestro and Wolverine dress?
Yeah.
It's all I can think about. Sinestro would look right at home on a very gay version of Alpha Flight. Anyway, one of the things that I've learned is how much DC utilized the ability to ask fans to fill in the gaps. And I think that in so many ways, fandom had filled in enough of the gaps on this story that I wish this had been treated as confirmation, not a revelation, because it's treated as a revelation to both Nightcrawler and the audience.
Yeah.
And if it had been treated as the story the audience has always demanded. Yeah. And if you didn't demand this, that's not our problem because it's what's happening. Live with it. I don't know. Blue should have been celebrated much harder, and it bothers me that it wasn't. I think it should have been the Uncanny Spider-Man annual, but then I understand how that demotes it. But I don't know. Peter Parker and MJ got married in an annual. Rogue took Carol Danvers' powers in an annual. My birthday is technically an annual.
They
And
could
I
have just
think
made
all
it.
three of those things are pretty special.
They could have just made it the X-Men annual.
Yeah. So
I want
Or-
to answer a comment real quick from Dave at rathole.ca. I'm only able to be half here. Nightcrawler Spider-Man, a thing that apparently happened. As I answered to him, Marvel just loves a crossover and a fusion. Things like this happen a lot, even if they're only temporary. Am I right?
And this is, yeah, you are right. And this is one of the ones they spend enough time being like, hey, this is weird, but we are doing, like, in issue, Kurt is like, thank you for letting me just pretend to be Spider-Man. And it is very clearly part of his trauma response to stuff that happened in Way of X or Legions of X, all of which this was one of the more okay ones, mostly because Kurt doesn't have the same problem that Spider-Man has. We do often with Kurt do faith stuff, but he doesn't keep going, I'm just a Catholic that can't figure out how to do the rosary and be a mutant. Like, it has broadened into, I'm trying to figure out my faith. How do you be incredibly horny all the time and be a man of God? How do you make a new religion? What do you got?
Tori's question is really fair. It's Xavier's dream had to die.
Yes.
That's
number
which of
one.
Kurt's uncles had to die for him
Yeah.
to get this suit. Yes.
Yeah.
The other thing I need to say is that this is as close to a portmanteau as you can get. This is if somebody said to you, I need a very opinionated coming of age story. And of course you would say Judge Judy Blume. Like, this is the before and after that Pat and Vanna have promised us for 28 years.
He's a night wall crawler, yeah.
Yeah, his powers are, I stick to walls and I am funny, yeah. And, Peter Parker's whole thing is, I probably can't do a German accent. Let me try. Ja? Is it funny? Did I do good? Oh, well, anyway, I've webbed you. Like, they really are the same. This is a guy who should worry that no one takes him seriously because he's such a goofball.
Yeah. Yeah. And he has such a horrible experience at the end, at pre-Hellfire Gala and after the Hellfire Gala, that he just goes and tries to be Spider-Man for a little bit. He just goes and tries to help a general area out, neighborhood in New York. And I think that's fun. I think that's cool. It's all the Silver Sable stuff was a little weird.
You know what? Cy Spurrier has been writing comics for like 20 something years. So when people ask me, what is your silly, you would do it in a heartbeat. Oh, MC2, so I have to wonder, Cy Spurrier, were you part of that Silver Sable and the Funky Bunch or whatever good vibration it was?
He's just like, I've always wanted to make sure she gets laid by Kurt. Maybe, and you know what? That's fine. The fact that he managed to fold that into a story that canonically confirms that Mystique can shapeshift functional testes into her situation and make a baby. That dynamite authoring there. And I think, your point that you made at the start is the biggest one, which is like, this was not a huge reveal. This was really great confirmation. This Claremont has said that this was a very potential avenue, if not the definite intention. It is something that people have gone with for a really long time. I think the idea of playing with, hey, we're not giving you a reveal, we're giving you confirmation, is actually one of the more interesting ways that Marvel publication, editorial, and marketing could get a thing on their hands that can galvanize the fan base in a particular way.
Especially if it's something that fandom pushed for.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, if we've been around talking about this, rather than saying like, hey, we just had an idea, which is a shitty way to do it, because we all go, no, you did not just have an idea. Chris Claremont had an idea 50 years ago. All you have to say is like, hey, come join us for the thing you've been waiting for. That's so much more inviting. Yeah.
speaking of people I'd get gay with, and I mean that very silly, I just want to touch on one thing about the Jean Grey mini
Oh,
that
please.
did and didn't work for me in
Yeah.
every way. When you bring in a legacy author, one of the things that you bring in is the inability not to feel a vibe. Like, first of all, both Simonsons, giants of industry.
Mhm.
But one of the things that I feel when I'm reading a Louise Simonson book is I'm reading somebody who's never really given up on internal dialogue. The amount of internal language, the amount of, and this is the moment that I realized, like, I am all down for Angela Chase to narrate.
And just like that.
Yeah. Yes. And it's
My Phoenix Force was holding me back.
Yes. This is Jean Grey falls walking down the runway, and Margaret Cho is like, "You go, bitch!" Like, it is that. Oh, Kevy, maybe we just watched the first season of Sex and the City tonight.
I don't remember that. I only went to Drop Dead Diva for some reason.
Oh no, she falls, and Margaret Cho is really into it.
That's not the first season though, is it?
No, it's third season. But
Yeah. You make a fantastic point. Like, because the thing is, like, Simonson acquits herself better than a lot of her ilk and generation.
Yes.
Because some of those people, I think in the scripts, they probably still write in thought bubble, which we don't really do thought bubbles that much anymore. There is a ton of inner monologue that used to be in thought bubbles that now just goes in narrative boxes. Simonson still writes a little bit like it is in a thought bubble, more so than some younger people in the industry, some of whom have literally never read a comic that has long thought, has long Claremontian thought bubbles. So she's a little more old school, and I would say there are a lot of times where I wouldn't want to see that. This is the one where I'm like, okay, this was good. This was, Claremont keeps getting, they're technically in continuity, but they cannot affect present day continuity flashback stories. We give them to, Liefelds or their AUs. Fabian Nicier. Well,
I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to react over you. Yes.
As a Jean fan.
As Ali Galactic, as a Jean stan, should I read this? Yes, absolutely you should. This is an important book. And it's actually, Ali, it's really important for the future of the plot. So you've got this, you've got what's happening at the end of Immortal X-Men. Then you've got X-Men Forever coming out, which I think is going to be Jean's probably reunification with the Phoenix Force, and I think that is going to have a lot to do with these powers outside of time and space that afflict the X-Men. But yeah, I mean, this was, seeing somebody like Louise Simonson not get the Claremont treatment of like, okay, you can write a Gambit story, but it takes place in 1991 and nothing can happen that affects who Gambit is today. Seeing her get this kind of really massive retrospective that's really important to today's storytelling was cool.
So I'm going to be brave yet controversial.
I love when you get brave yet controversial.
So Jean Grey as a gay man was my entrance point into the X-Men. But one of the things that winds up happening is because of that, I'm so attached to the people that are very attached to Jean Grey's work. So something that I've been realizing in the last couple of years is that far too many of these legacy stories have gone to Chris Claremont. And one of the things that X-Men Legends allowed for was so many of these classic writers to see their stories included in modern residual contracts. Now, what would have been a lot more special was if each one of those tied into a classic story that could have then been interpreted or interpolated into the trade. So like if, Wheezy did 2 brilliant issues in X-Men Legends that got added to a Fall of the Mutants standard version of the trade, so that she was receiving that sort of modern income, because I don't think a lot of people are going out and buying X-Men Legends trades. Like, I just don't think that was the name of the book, right? Legends?
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things that I think ultimately that has pointed this out to me, and it's so stupid, and you have to go on a 20-second journey with me. I promise I'll keep it short. One of the most stable influences in my entire life has been The Price is Right. I was a kid who had to be homeschooled because of some medical stuff. So I watched Price is Right every single day in high school and middle school. That was my shit. And one of the things is that means I am very attached to this very dumb game. And we watch it regularly. We have a Paramount Plus subscription so that I can watch it every day with Kevo and Jonah and TK when he's here. And,
and so your parents can watch old people stuff. But yes, for us, it's for Price is Right.
And, if Rich, if you're watching, because he's been watching, hey, it's super cool. Right. I was telling him about how it's something I would love for him to watch with us sometime, because I have a very unique reaction to it. So dumb, but this season they went so out of their way to make sure that no model seemed like the junior baby. There's 6 regular models, 4 women and 2 men, and everybody received really fair treatment in a way that made me feel like nobody here is the princess. I think this Jean Grey mini proved that we have passed the age of Chris Claremont is the princess.
Yeah.
That's such an extended Plinko style metaphor.
No. Yeah, I see exactly what you're saying. And I don't want to say that. Real quick, Allie says, I get very scared of Jean focused stories because so many writers have done her so dirty. Yes, my immediate fear. Allie, I'm really glad you snagged all 4. This is Louise Simonson. This is one of the.
And if you don't like it, I'll get a P.O. box just like Bendis, and you can return it just like Disassembled. Evidently, no one did.
So
but
they say.
This was good. And I don't want to say like it's time for Simonson to get the princess treatment, but it is. And if nothing else, I'm happy to see, especially Simonson and Nesenti.
If 2024 is not the year of Nesenti, I give up.
Come on, like, give it to us. I mean, and we're going to get to it in a second exactly who I think should be part of that year. But last, we have to first do Miss Marvel, the New Mutant. Perfectly fine, sort of boring.
No, I'm going to challenge.
What?
Actually, this is more exciting than most first outings from indie legends who come on over. I love the strange talent of Luther Strode, but I think it took Tradmore quite a while to figure out how to be Tradmore at Marvel. Iman Vellani, I don't know if it's just that she's so fucking cool. She goes and sees Spamalot sitting next to Brie Larson or something, but she came to this book and said, I'm going to understand comics. I am going to be taught by the greatest people I can get my hands on. What I got here was a better first attempt by a recognizably patternable voice. This sounds more like Iman Vellani's Twitter and interviews than it does like Ms. Marvel from the TV show by a long shot. I really would trade a number of up-and-coming writers for Iman Vellani to have made enough money on Ms. Marvel, the TV show, to retire from acting and
do writing.
I think she could legitimately. This book makes me think she could run an Avengers title. I don't know.
I
If
completely
title, but definitely.
I completely agree with all of that. The editorial mandate was what really made this to me, because it really felt like somebody was saying she can do anything you want in this box that is very small, all right up to the end where she has this moment with Emma where they remind you, by the way, we still don't know what your mutation is, and we're not telling you, and you're not even getting a hint. Here is the fashion version of the bangle, because we're not doing the bangle story that we did in the MCU in this, which I thought was
But here you go.
Yeah, literally, you can see it. That was the only thing. I agree with everything you're saying. She's a fantastic writer. I'm so glad she's getting another one. I think Avengers, great. I would really like to see her write the team of young mutants that Miss Marvel goes on after we do what?
I'm sorry, you said something perfect, so Marvel would never do it, and it made me laugh uncontrollably.
Oh, yeah. Okay. We're getting Miss Marvel, the Mutant Menace next, also written by Iman Vellani. When that's done, we'll have started rolling into this From the Ashes thing. If they were to do a New Mutant series or a Generation X or even, an All Mutants Champions, having Iman Vellani write it, I think would be perfect. Yeah, right?
With Greg Pak.
Yeah. Yeah.
Greg Pak, can we just give him his flowers for 10 seconds?
I love that man more than almost any other writer in comics.
I mean, he's a Claremont.
He's one of very few that I've actually gotten to meet and speak to in a context where I could, because I don't really like to meet creators at conventions. And this happened to be, he was a friend of a teacher of mine, so he came into one of our classes, and it was not a class about comic books, so I was the only person that read comics. I just got to speak to him about how phenomenal his writing is, and it's one of the greatest comic moments of my life. So anyway, I think that would be such an amazing collaboration. I would love to see Greg Pak on more mutant stuff. Always.
Didn't he just write original X-Men?
Yeah, but I want to see him on more.
Where's that Christos Gage?
It was Gage on that, but Greg Pak has a mutant thing coming up, or just had one.
He just had one. Or has one coming up. Absolutely.
But
because you brought up Champions. So,
yeah.
One of the things that I think that by bringing up Champions, you're introducing is Ms. Marvel is a pivotal moment in the Marvel universe, no matter what point in time we're talking about. She represented a moment where suddenly the minority characters were no longer outliers. As much as I love early Miles Morales, he was always treated as that ultimate universe idea that could never take hold in the Marvel universe. Ms. Marvel was a transformative moment for the Marvel universe that allowed us to see that perhaps a character like Ms. Marvel has a name that is so recognizable, no matter what, people are going to give it a chance. Now, of course, you have to earn that chance. And with a character like Kamala, we really saw that come true. I think by putting her here in the X-Men and, by referencing the Champions, I kind of think, Kamala's Law, we're looking at 3 iterations of what it means to be a young person in the Marvel universe. I think she is destined to sort of like take on that mantle of female young Spider-Man. I don't think that there is anyone who matches Spider-Man as the iconographic young Marvel female other than maybe Jean. Now, of course, she's no longer young, but I think Ms. Marvel has all of the trappings it would take to be the new Marvel girl. And I really would love to see that come for Iman Vellani's writing in particular.
That idea, I love an insane amount. The idea of her taking on the Marvel Girl title, that would be fascinating.
And just now that she's a mutant and she has this special secret mutation, I wonder if her special secret mutation is I think that Marvel is building toward a big reset. I think everything is coming toward a big reset, and I think it's going to be New 52 style. I think we're going to be looking at a retelling of classic stories within the next 10 years to set up for a refreshed MCU that this can connect to. Now, in addition to that, I think that that's why we're starting to see the payoff of some of the greatest stories ever told, and then placeholder stories that follow. I think seeing something like Hulk, Immortal Hulk. I was like, what was it called? Hulk Goes to Hell? Right, no. Immortal Hulk told us that you can go places that a character just kind of can't recover from, but the audience is willing to not recover for that good a story. I think that might have been what we saw with Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil. I think even Krakoa, to an extent, plays that same gambit. Now, when the universe needs to reset, we're going to need some sort of Death in the Family meets Infinite Crisis thing that's going to sell the flashpoint that they're building toward. And I think Ms. Marvel and Miles Morales are being set up as 2 figures that are going to shepherd in the new age of the Marvel Universe. And I think by positioning her as an Avenger, a champion, a solo hero, and now an X-Man, We are literally seeing her represent the entirety of the Marvel brand with her own name as well as her character placement.
Genius interpretation. I'm leaving it there because I think that's a perfect place to stop. Or
Also,
not
Iman
stop,
Vellani, I
stop.
love
but-
you.
Yeah, Aman Vellani, we love the hell out of you. On to the mini team stories. I feel like I'm missing one.
This was a page of disappointment. I wanted to give most of these books an A, and at best I could give most of them an A minus. At best, and that's if there was nothing else wrong with them. The premises max out at an A minus. I think I'm giving Children of the Vault my highest vote at a B plus.
Yeah.
And I think everything else, the max you can see is a C.
Children of the Vault for me, it was also the best. Although again, this is a conflict with the Children of the Vault is bigger than a conflict with Orcus. Children of the Vault should have just been like, oh, we took over Orcus. We did it 20 years ago in our time, which was half a second ago for you guys.
We ate them. It was delicious.
Yeah, the Children of the Vault are such a, it's such a looming threat that we only get these slices of because they can only really exist in our world for slices or it doesn't make sense. To have this be just Cable and Bishop, I don't know. I would rather the book been called Cable and Bishop and feature a couple of Children of the Vault than to have it be an all-out Children of the Vault are also taking over the world story that can't continue after this 4-issue mini because we have to go back to Orcus.
I'm sorry, hold on real quick. Oppressive white guilt for a moment.
Please.
I wonder if the problem is, while he is one of the most recognizably lovable X-Men of all time, truly both by visual and by character identity, I wonder if the problem is that there is concern that Bishop's name, after the lackluster response to Bishop War College, cannot sell a book the same way Cable can. And if you call the book Cable, it's clearly problematic when they're equal, leads. So in place of calling it Cable and Bishop, you just give it another name.
Yeah, very possibly. I just, I think you and I are two people that feel very strongly positively about Children of the Vault. And you're being much more reasonable than I'm being, but I just sort of felt like this was not story-wise, just in terms of how it fits into the meta plot. This was a bit of a disservice to the Children of the Vault. Cable and Bishop, very cool here. I give Camp a lot of credit for not going too hard on the angst of how much they must hate each other based on all that they've done to each other. And this just being kind of a workplace afternoon for them. Two guys that just really like guns.
There's a soldier's camaraderie.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
That I think, we all kind of like understand how to have the same job as someone else. If somebody else, even if you don't like them, they're like, I have been doing this dumb show. All right, suspenders coming down. I have been doing this dumb show for 1 trillion years. And by dumb show in 1 trillion years, I mean this show I love more than anything. And I've been doing, some form of it for 5-6 years. And I have been on multiple special guest spot, multi-host episodes where I have had to look at people whose shows just make me mad. Like, the minute you get on camera with them, their opinions don't make you mad. You're with another person who does exactly what you do, and you just respect it.
Yeah, I hear that. Alpha Flight was really cool to see, and I actually thought this, of basically anything of the Fall of X, was the most Fall of X story, except for the fact that their Orcus branch is Department H rather than like really any official Orcus branch.
And what was with the art inconsistencies? They didn't even have like a crazy art team, but it felt very much like perhaps this team was asked to operate under a very tight time budget, and it did not befit the quality that this storytelling team was really trying to give us something special.
Yeah, this was you nailed it. I do wonder. It's one of those things where it's like nobody is asking for an Alpha Flight book, so why did you pressure anybody to make it? Possibly. Yeah, true.
Anytime you're wondering why a book changes name, anytime you're wondering, oh, why did Thor become Journey into Mystery?
Right.
Why did they randomly do an Alpha Flight one shot? If they don't do something to maintain the trademark, they legally have to file to keep it under like complicated ways, and nobody wants to sit with an injunction.
Yeah.
So instead, they just do a quick mini, they do a quick one shot, and even if it has nothing to do with the existing title, sometimes that's how you wind up with like Squadron Supremes that don't feature any of the Supremes, Mary Wilson or otherwise.
Makes a lot of sense. This to me was a really fun book. I think I say nobody was asking for an Alpha Flight book, but we'd all love a new Gamma Flight book, as Ali Galactic points out. I think people really did want to see what was going on with these characters. We'd gotten a bunch of the Bobier twins on Krakoa, the fact that one of them is now really connected to Akihiro, who I think is having a really big heyday. This was just a really good time for a bunch of characters to show up. It was great to see. They did the great fake out of a bunch of Alpha Flight. Seems like they're working for Department H, but then they're secretly. That was really what? You didn't like it?
Great fake out? No.
Fake out. Oh, come on.
Perfunctory fake out.
Yeah.
Also, I want to rewrite Mariah Carey's Hero to be Akihiro, bisexual claw slut. And I think it absolutely works in every way.
That's how I do All Eyes on Me in the center of the ring like Andy Serkis.
I am legally required to tell you that is excellent, sir. I am under the legal obligation to tell you. It's like anybody who knows Cardcaptor Sakura. We feel that the ending of one of the songs, it sounds like she's saying Maya Rudolph. So we all always shout Maya Rudolph.
Like loving you is easy because you're beautiful.
Man, the number of people that don't realize that is Minnie Riperton's daughter.
Yeah, I know.
That is why every time she sings on any variety show, I'm like, guys, this
everybody shut up and listen.
Child.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, the other thing I want to say about this is two books that we literally clawed for, you and I in particular.
Yep.
We wanted Dark X-Men and Realm of X more than almost any two people.
Yep.
We've had the pleasure of telling Torn Grunbook to her Twitter, and her reply, thank you. I've listened to your shows. She's a very nice woman. I understand you guys would love me on X-Men. We'll see what can happen. And then we get Realm of X, which should have been a slam dunk, but was given all of the editorial authority of nothing. And then we had Dark X-Men, which was quite literally if our Spider-Man dreams merged with X-Men. And this was also a great big editorial nothing. And what do I mean by an editorial nothing? If I tell you that there are 10 rules to a universe and that there are 11 books and that 10 of the books get to change something about that universe and one book gets to do nothing, that one book has no editorial influence.
Yep.
Those characters are left in either the exact same position that they started in, or they're in some reasonable facsimile. These two books are very clearly meant to be footnotes on the wiki, not meant to be character redefining. And that is a shame because these two creative teams did beautiful jobs telling stories about characters, not just facilitating a plot.
I really completely agree. It's tough because it's even one of those things where I don't know, if you're a kid who is 16 right now, who dreams of becoming a comic book fan or a comic book writer, and Dark X-Men was one of your big reads that like made you fall in love with Madeline Pryor. There's basically nothing that you can reference the way that people are like, oh, I'm writing Children of the Vault because I read Mike Carey's Supernovas arc and I loved Children of the Vault. There you go. there's nothing to pull out of Dark X-Men to be like, well, I really loved Maddie, so I did. I mean, like, everything that's there, I think, if it never comes back again, it will be like, so the Mercy Crown, really cool, but like, I don't feel like the Mercy Crown is going, I feel like it's going to come back immediately as just like a one-off tool to fight Orcus.
Do you think this iteration of Gambit is ever coming up again?
Yeah, exactly. I don't see, Havoc being half dead is, I mean, I guess all of these things could come up again. I just feel like they're probably not going to. And on top of that, they're just not quite things. It's like, it's not as though Havoc, found out that he can access a different kind of energy, and it's a death energy, so therefore somebody else can make that a part of Havoc's character. Multiversal Maddies maybe, but I doubt it. It was really well written. It just, it really was specifically kind of seemed like it was art. The architecture was there for it to be inconsequential. Same thing for Grunbeck's Realm of X. All of the characters in this at the top of their game.
And written by somebody who seems to understand how each one of them shouldn't sound like a shade of herself. I went back over some of the Valkyrie and Thor stuff that Torrin Grunbeck did, and I think I maybe realized that some of the voicing can maybe run together at times in a Grant Morrison way. So I'm saying a real cool club, you know what I mean? But this felt like, and admittedly, it's like 17 different characters at one point. There are way too many people in Realm of X at one point. But it really did feel like I was reading a multitude of characters instead of one person's vision for all of these voices, which at times, that is my biggest strike against Dark X-Men. Steve Fox is an absolute talent house when it comes to understanding, especially the women of the X-Men, which all too often gay men think they do. But Steve Fox seems to actually understand, right? Way far more than a Facebook message board. But they all kind of sound like Steve Fox's very cool voice in a way that I think is Aaron Sorkin-ish. But Realm of X was the most separate, unique voices on characters of all of these titles, maybe.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And separate voices, but also separate and spiritual character identities. Danny is doing something very different than what Ilyana is doing. And it's, she also doesn't choose to do the thing that most people do, which is have them spend a ton of time being best friends, which I love. Don't get me wrong. I love when the New Mutants are best friends, but we have gotten a lot of it over the last 10 years, over the last, since Decimation Era, when New Mutants started coming back, there has been a lot of, don't forget, the New Mutants are best friends. And I think...
I'm so sorry.
No, go for it.
There's a special sort of like bonding, and many of us project romantic or sexual,
and some of it is,
but it's like a Power Rangers team. They live and die by this tiny little command center,
right? Every once in a while, it's fun to see them not being best friends like let's talk, but being best friends like I got your back on the mission. And we're just going to do the mission for these 4 issues. We're just going to do the mission. I really loved that. She got Mary right down to just a really small element that for me was just like, this is a Mary story. Mary has a bit of a romance with one of the guys in Vanheim that leads to him kissing her. And she's going to go back and still be in love with Wilson Fisk. And if this is not a thing, this is not a story about how Mary cheated on Wilson. This is a story about how 2 people whose morals are so flexible, they have no spines or any sort of, bodily structure at all. So it's probably okay if while in another dimension, they kiss another person. Like, it's one of those things that just says, Rogue is probably never gonna, Rogue certainly does not kiss Wade at the end of Uncanny Avengers, even though those 2 have had romantic stuff at one point. that's just never going to happen. People would not accept it if Rogue was just like, yeah, I was in Otherworld, so I kissed a guy. But when Mary does it, yes, because Mary burns shit to the ground when she wants. Mary will commit crimes if she feels like. Mary's husband will murder a guy in his own house. They probably don't super duper care if the other one steals a kiss every now and then. Hoes in different timeline zones. Exactly, Tori. So this is such a minor point, but it was just like, yes, this is a Mary moment. She got to be go.
Well, I just wanted to jump in on it.
Yeah.
I feel like the way I can sum up their marriage is I can imagine like Hammerhead or I don't know, Mr. Negative going up to Wilson and being like, "You reek," and I mean reek of cum, violence, and blood. And I can just hear him saying, "Reminds me of my wife."
Yeah.
Like, it is truly, she is such a no shit, balls to the wall supervillain and superhero and whatever she chooses to be, that by using her as an opportunity to properly redefine the sort of nature of polyamory in the Marvel universe, perhaps in the way that Hickman failed with Jean, Logan, and Scott, we're able to see an exploration of a complex sexual identity through somebody that we already see as so sexual. It's kind of obvious that she would be someone in an open relationship. And I really love you pointing that out.
And other than that, she gets to have a really good heroic story. She's not... this isn't necessarily a good guy type of heroism, but it is we found the side that we're fighting on, and we're fighting on that side. And Mary fights, and she is a powerful character. It's funny. I feel a little bit stupid in our last discussion about gang war. I just kind of went on for a while about how Realm of X hadn't ended and we didn't know how Mary got there. Well, Realm of X actually had ended at that point.
It got shortchanged with 4, not 5.
Right. And I assumed it was getting a 5th issue. And I assumed that they would do more than just say, and then they went home, and then have Mary show up in Gang War for the first time with no real, and now I'm really concerned because the Mary that I have been pretty focused on since August or a little before August, is a potential X-Man. She is a member of the mutant nation. Her husband is playing the exact same, not quite good guy, but heroic game from the financier supreme angle, playing both sides of this situation with Emma and Tony. He is helping the mutants. He wants to because his wife is a mutant. He's picking a side. He's not all good, but seeing all this, seeing these two throw their lot in with the mutants and have the potential, again, not to be good guys, not to be Scott and Jean, but to fight on behalf of the mutants and potentially do some good as a result, to go right to we're doing gang war.
I want to make a comparison that hopefully works for people.
Yeah.
Right. So, I'm from New Jersey, so legally I'm required to think that Bruce Springsteen is a national treasure, and of course he is. But he is not the definition of Americana, and I grew up a New Jersey boy who was super into John Mellencamp. And so, of course, I have my Johnny Cougar albums, and then I have my Johnny Cougar Mellencamp albums, and then I have my John Cougar Mellencamp albums, and then I have my John Mellencamp albums. And that is to say that this gentleman, who initially started under a pseudonym, wanted to slowly transition to his own real name, and in fact did during the course of going on a date with Moira Rose. But what would go on to happen is he would have an incredible career where he would have to then be like, no, I'm that other guy too. And we never really accepted him changing his name in a lot of ways. I mean, ultimately now he's 70 and, cranky and cool. It's a very cranky Kong situation.
He doesn't care what any of you think.
He really doesn't. As long as he plays Key Largo Intermezzo, I really don't care. But end of the day, we have trouble when somebody like Captain America changes to Nomad. We force him back into Captain America. I really want to make an argument here. What I would love is if the position could change. Instead of changing a person to a different name, I would love to change a functional purpose in the Marvel Universe. There is no room for the Punisher in the Marvel Universe anymore. It doesn't work. And now that Frank has a spot in Weird World, what a horrible thing to ask me to say with my speech impediment. I think that we don't need this new Joe Garrison guy. I mean, please don't get me wrong. Very handsome design. And I know everybody working on it is really trying to do something. I just don't know it's the thing. I would really rather a Punisher-esque hero villain in Kingpin alongside his incredible wife. I think they represent that sort of darkest side of superhero-dom. He could really play that role, and imagine him coming to bat in crossovers and Matt not being able to say a fucking thing. And Elektra being like, Matthew, put your feelings away. Shut up. Just do the thing. We have a job. And like the idea of who Wilson has become in the last, I mean, I literally remembered watching, Kevo was going to cringe. When Wilson kills that man with his car door on Daredevil, I literally wept saying he is the perfect man. Like literally sobbing on the floor. He is perfect. I just think he's perfect.
He's a fascinating character, and I think one of the things that has come up as a newer, I've now back read a lot of Wilson stuff, but like as somebody who's experiencing a lot of stuff kind of fresher, Wilson's vibe lately has been a lot more, I will do whatever is best for myself and then the area around me. I am the law and order mayor. I want to keep New York safe, and I know the best way to do it. And I'll kill a ton of people to keep New York safe, but God damn it, Kevin. We've done a lot less of the...
In front of Vanessa.
In the comics especially, we've done a lot less of that unhinged thing and a lot more of the I'm in control because I know what is best. And I think that can translate really well into, I think these guys, the mutants, I think these guys are doing what's best. I'm behind them now. I will be the new Sebastian Shaw that isn't so self-interested, but can figure out how to be self-interested while also enriching the people I've thrown my lot in with. I don't think that's entirely unbelievable, and I don't think that goes entirely the route of altruism or selflessness. I think you can still be a really great anti-hero. And again, Mary, just the reason that I'm saying all this about Wilson, but it all applies to Mary too. Mary is very self-interested, but also wants to put herself in situations where she, the environment is good for others as well. So anyway, I mean, there's a lot of potential there. I want to get this last one discussed. Uncanny Avengers has never been a good idea as a title since its inception. You're muted.
Oh gosh, that's why my horrible it was like the universe was trying to stop me from making this joke. Uncanny Avengers is sort of like, imagine Chad Hunt finally made just like a full-on gay penetration scene, and it's just the worst thing you've ever seen. Rogue as an Avenger, as an X-Man as an Avenger, should be the best title that I read every single month, especially when you've got Penance, you've got Captain America, you have a who's who of what makes the Marvel Universe my personal emotional playground, and then you put in fucking Hydra Cap. I cannot think of a story I hate the way I hate Hydra Cap, And yet here we are talking about this monstrosity of a character some 5 years after the nightmare that we had to live through with this. I don't want to say nightmare again. Save me from myself.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. This title once brought us the "Don't Call Me Mutant" speech from Havoc. I mean, this title.
Oh my God, you went full Remender. That's gross.
This title has always. This is the portmanteau thing again. But it's the opposite of what's happening with Spider-Man. Like, it just is never working here. I love the idea of an Avengers and X-Men have to work together squad, but it seems like they always call it the Unity Squad, and the idea is no, we are brothers in arms. We are soldiers together. We fight for the common good. And it is so rare that the book ever addresses the thing that, like, one of my favorite moments of all time, or a bunch of different moments, but Emma post decimation and post bus getting blown up, putting Carol in the coffin with the kids, yelling at Tony, saying, you guys are not our allies. You guys never show up when we need you. And this goes all the way through to Avengers versus X-Men. And then this thing happens where they just go, no, Avengers and X-Men are friends because they're both superhero teams. And it really actually needs to be, we have to work together, and we can work together well, but man, is it difficult because we both do things the way that we do them. We both screw up sometimes. We both make good points. And it's not that we are putting that all aside for the sake of unity. It's that we have to work together to save the world. And how are we going to put that aside? And this book is it does the same thing again. I love that Cap is all against Orcus. I really do. But I don't know. I just feel like we're retreading the same territory where nobody can quite get a real grip onto what this book needs to be to make a real point and a real difference and to be interesting.
Well, and I think the other problem that this book suffers from is that it's so eager to recapture an identity that was never really realized. Something that we talk about a lot is the projection of the perfection of Krakoa is actually just like 6 or 7 issues, because between pandemic issues and the fact that it only was like 2 months before everybody was like, yeah, Fallen Angels, not great, that we realized that maybe this wasn't the perfect era. I think Uncanny Avengers is looking to recapture the idea that Uncanny Avengers was going to save us all, and it didn't.
Nope.
Rick Remender is like, I don't want to say something really actually controversial, but like, Seth MacFarlane is unbelievably talented. The guy can write a sci-fi show like nobody's business, and what a goddamned vocalist. But like, Rick Remender is like the dark version of Seth MacFarlane. What if somebody as talented as Seth MacFarlane was just eager to tell stories that made me cringe? And the energy that he is, those cakes are legend right there that we have framed up so beautifully. But other than that, at what cost? The cake, but Rick Remender's storytelling has so many beautiful hallmarks that should interest me. He wants to talk about mutant-human relations as it relates to the identity of what it means to be a minority in a majority world. Oh God, he took the wrong side. Then we have the opportunity to talk about multiversal children of some of the most fascinating. Oh my God, they're just awful. And then he has the opportunity to do an incredible. Oh my God, it's Axis. And so, like, every time Rick Remender had the opportunity to do something cool, he did a Rick Remender. And so when you talk about things that are designed to romanticize an era, this is trying to harken back to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. This was the most C to me. I don't think it was horrible.
I really did this. I genuinely did it. Yeah.
I don't think it was horrible, but it never did anything for me. It seemed pretty obvious that it was going to be Hydra Cap, and then I thought that that's too stupid. So, they're not going to do it. And then that is what it was. Really hated the Brotherhood of Mutants that they put together there, because the Blob for the past 5 years has been a well-to-do bartender. I would have much rather seen him go work for Wilson at the Hellfire Club. This was insane. And what did we get out of this? This didn't even do what Alpha Flight did, which is like give us a great story, or like a really solid story about a resistance team that finished their mission. These guys, they got the 20 mutants from that were in Krakoa North to Chandalar. That was all they needed to do. And they stymied a petal of Orcus. The Firestar Unlimited comic, she has now infiltrated the narrative petal and is running it. So there are little places where people are like chipping away at the Orcus idea. It's just coming. It's not clear. No reader can juggle all this. So like you really have to sit and make a chart of what the status quo of the X-Men who are fighting against Orcus is and how they've chipped away at them. And it's just unfortunate that like in some of these bigger books, you don't get a final thing that's like, okay, we took care of X part of Orcus. Stage is now set for how this is going to flip when we do this next phase. Instead, they're all just like chaos, story getting told, plot point, end to be continued.
In the 5th season of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, there is a storyline where the captain of the Nine-Nine, the recently passed Andre Braugher, who gives one of the most compelling performances on a sitcom I can think of, is up for the commissioner of police, and he's up against a number of other people, some of them much older, one a woman who is much younger. And he has a whole idea to put in a social media squad in each precinct. And the much younger woman goes, I would just eliminate precincts altogether. And he's like, what? Oh, God, I'm a dinosaur. And, Uncanny Avengers kind of came up to me and was like, I would put a social media presence in each precinct. And as the reader, I'm like, I would eliminate precincts altogether, ACAB. And so, like, this just really felt like such a complete misread of what I was looking for from a book that was meant to promote the, I don't even want to say the overall unity of the Marvel Universe, but I guess the cohesion of the Marvel Universe. Were we meant to think that this version of Uncanny Avengers is supposed to carry the banner for the universe the way Uncanny Avengers by Remender was meant to be the ongoing event title at all times? I sure hope not, because at best, this represents a footnote in the fall of X, let alone the bigger footprint of the Marvel Universe at large. Not to mention, this isn't even a Remender character. Hydra Cap is a Nick Spencer thing. So it's like, this isn't even, he was like, I didn't get to do my whole thing with that character in Secret Empire. He was more like, do you remember that time Captain America was a Nazi? What a good move.
Well, and to be fair, this was Duggan. This wasn't Remender.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I meant to say that Remender was the earlier era of Uncanny Avengers that we were hearkening back to.
Yeah, like Duggan, and Duggan also didn't Duggan do one of the other Uncanny Avengers runs?
I think he did Volume 3,
which is my favorite thing to reference in terms of he wrote something that should be one of the biggest things that's ever happened in the Marvel Universe, and it never gets brought up again. Vision meets another Vision type robot, and they have a lot of sex and children.
And then we get the Tom Taylor Vision series, right?
Which is a different woman and set of children having nothing to do with the ones that ever come up. So anyway, I mean, like Marvel keeps doing this to themselves. This was a real mixed bag. So many great creators doing so much with what they were given, but they were really just not given any roadway to participate in what comes after. And a lot of them really weren't given any roadway to onboard. So I don't really know what to do with it. I love the biggest thing for me is like I would kill for more Torrin Grunbeck, Vanheim, mutant, bring Thor into the mix stories.
How can mother if you won't let her mother?
Truly the question of the year.
Yes.
I think part of the problem is these miniseries are being treated like they're not the same thing as the ongoings, but the ongoings themselves are moving in arc structures such that they feel like individual minis with ongoing collective numbers. Not to mention, half of these minis actually have collective numbers on them representing what they are in the bigger picture of Marvel Legacy numbering. It really starts to feel after a while like, what is the difference between a mini and an ongoing? This is just a way to pay people less sometimes.
Yeah.
They're not doing less than the ongoings. And if you're asking me which one of these felt like it should have been an ongoing, Uncanny Avengers for sure. Not just because it's the staple book, but because I can't imagine putting this group of people on a team together after the Hellfire Gala and not saying it is representative of the overall direction of the Marvel Universe as a whole.
Yep. And it's especially when you think about where the Avengers title is. It does sort of feel like, for as much as I don't... What's that?
It's the book that's not shipping so that Avengers Twilight can have a month all to itself with its 54 covers?
Give me something here. And like I keep saying, I like that Avengers book, but it feels like Marvel doesn't especially care about or for it. And this one could have continued. There's no reason why it couldn't have, why it has to be attached to any of this Krakoa stuff. So it just leads to more of the same, like, I don't know what we're doing here.
I mean, I would have probably had an alternating creative team, and I would have had the other team written by Gail Simone.
I love that.
Same exact cast of characters.
Yeah.
But this cast of characters written by Gail Simone, Rogue, Deadpool, Domino, Did I just project that I wanted Domino in this book? And
you did, but you are correct.
Like I meant Penance. And I wanted Domino in the book so bad. Tori, your question of at what point do we think these minis will just be self-contained trades instead? We're seeing it a little bit more at DC, but still a $20 buy-in when you don't know that you like anything is a lot more to ask than when you can check out maybe one issue online for $1.99, or if you wait 2 months, you can check out the whole thing for free on Marvel Unlimited.
Yeah, it really becomes the difficult question. I would kill to be picking up fewer books, but feeling like, I keep saying, like a 60-pager once a month for certain things would make me a lot happier than these 5-issue ones that sort of go with a whimper and just lose steam from the audience. And that's one of the really frustrating things is I read them all. And I'm like, hey, who wants to talk about that wild ending to Children of the Vault? And thank God I have, 2 partners that are good with that. But like when I reach out to the world at large into comic fandom, most people have given up by the time we get to the end of Children of the Vault or the end of Alpha Flight. And it kind of sucks when you're like, no, I'm committed. I'm buying the mini. I'm buying the third Betsy Braddock Captain Britain mini. And just nobody cares anymore. So I would so much rather it be a 60-page one-time thing and just have everybody get their shits and giggles out in that moment and then go get the another one that is about another character entirely.
It's why I think video games are facing such a complicated road where, video games are truly a $1 trillion industry and one of the only ones that is a functional ongoing industry that can rely on those figures. And when you think about the amount of time that goes into a game, I'm looking at you, Insomniac, 2030 X-Men game. That's realistic. They're not going to do a game before they know what they're putting in the MCU. That's probably still changing by the day right now. Yeah, character models are really fucking expensive, man. If they have to keep changing it for whatever the MCU is going to put in that movie, they're screwed.
They also have to write and develop the entire game period. Just, all of the pre-planning, the entire user experience, what the workflow of the game is going to be. That's years of pre-development. So that's 2 years. By then, once they start development, that's another 2 years to do that, actual coding. But the thing is, 4 years in, we're probably not working for PS5 anymore.
Nope.
So now we've got to figure out what the PS6 is looking like.
Well, you Pikmin 4.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I think depending on where, there's so much we don't know, but I don't think it is as though they are, they can't make this game in time. It's such a difficult process or anything. It's a lot of different factors. And a big one being, you're not going to put something out for a system that nobody's going to own by the time you're ready to start selling. So if that means that it takes 7 years, because that's how long it's going to take to get on the PS6, which is going to make the most financial sense, then yeah, you're stuck with it, because then you guys would be pissed if this game was a financial failure and they never made another one.
So I'm so glad that you said so many passionate, fact-based, exactly in the direction I needed you to things. There I am. Okay,
There you
cool. Video games really suffer from that exact problem, where a video game takes 6 years and then people are done talking about it in 2 months.
Yep.
A comic takes 4 to 5 months to really make, reasonably speaking, but a trade, now that takes 6 issues across 5 months each. Now there's an overlap process. Probably takes a year to make a trade. And so now you've got this year-long trade experience. Okay, let's talk about an omnibus. An omnibus contains 36 issues. That's 3 years. That's a run. Great. The day the run is over, nobody wants to talk about it anymore. It's special when it's Immortal X-Men or Immortal Hulk, or man, we're kind of stuck with Immortal as the adjective. But how many people are running back and are Rosencanny? It did stuff. Now, I definitely picked a questionable run in the first place. I guess that's my Cerebro Austin sword to fall on. But I really do think that one of the things that we're talking about at this point is $4 a book plus $5 for specials. You're getting a special at least once a year. You're looking at 13 issues. I'm sorry, but this is a small house to collect the X-Men line. And when not everything respects the reader, we're left in a position where some of these books really should be 90-page specials, 100-page specials for $10 on Comixology. Yeah. And if they're so damn good, then you print them.
Yeah. And, and I think that matches up with, give me that one release, we'll talk about it for a week, which was kind of going to happen anyway, because when it is 5 releases, we talk about it the first week, but then it's basically dead after that. We're talking about the next thing. It's so wild how many number ones keep showing up in my collection. And I just, okay, that's fine, but maybe we don't do so many number 2s that just nobody gets excited about. And then you, the producer, get upset that nobody cares about the number 2s.
Yeah, that's another thing that I am maybe a little bit concerned about with the face of the current state of X-Men. Why y'all getting mad that we don't like what you're making? Make books we want? Something that I really find troubling about the nature of X-Men currently is when I look at the rosters, they're not the rosters people are clamoring for online. Now, my whole perspective about the nature of the X-Twitter community is that's about 5,000 people talking about sales of about 500,000. 1 to 100 isn't a great ratio. So I don't think that those truly represent the voices of the average reader. They represent the voices of the passionate reader, which is something so important. Those are the people that are going to buy no matter what. But that's then the problem. They're buying no matter what. And they'll come back every 5 years. Marvel has pretty good data on that. So when Marvel's thinking about how to program they're just not thinking about what people online are clamoring for. But then what we're starting to see as the internet exists longer is the ability to go back and go, I'm looking at all of the reviews from that era. They're terrible. I'm not going to read that entire era because the 1 for 100, the one very vocal percent have made it very clear that 6 years isn't worth buying. So, I think that's a really significant thing to think about. We're no longer just talking about a changed market. We're talking about a changed aftermarket.
I'll be interested to see how all of this, the fall of X, plays into that aftermarket in the years to come.
Evidently, though, Jean Grey is a good book. So says Ali Galactic. So
Allie, I'm so glad you love Jean Grey. She's, as always, we're kind of holding out for her. So we'll see where that goes. And now we start the fall of the House of X and the rise of the Powers of 10.
And the balancing of the scales of Y and the remastering of the game of Z, I am truly frustrated by the nomenclature that we're seeing. I love the symmetry of the visuals with the nomenclature, but outside of the value of that symmetry, this has to sit on a shelf and it has to make sense. A finale, I don't know, Kevo, I guess this is really a question for you. Okay, because I've only seen the first season and a half of it. And, for me, Claudia Black will always be Val Malderon. So fucking hot. But Farscape has never been something I really got into. Kevo, you got into Farscape through the Peacekeeper Wars, and then you went back and experienced the whole series. I don't think there's anything that, as a new reader, I would pick up Fall or Rise of House and Powers, of Tens, of X, of 5, of 8, the cat that ate the rat, that whole bit. How do we feel about something where the finale doesn't stand on its own and only really stands as an iteration of the beginning of the work itself?
Teak, do you want to respond first, since you know the material better?
No, I mean, the point is, like, I know the material. I'm the guy that's kind of like, I guess I'm going. You're the guy. Does this do a single thing for you is really the question.
Unfortunately, it's I think more going to be a time will tell thing.
Yeah.
It depends on what this leads into. And I can even wrap that into the Farscape response, because you unbelievably lovingly collected all of the Farscape comics for me when they started releasing them. And, they were interesting at first, but they started doing weird stuff and doing weird things with characters that I had loved, that had been left in a really good place with the Peacekeeper Wars as the series finale of Farscape. And so I have never fully finished the comics. I've read a little bit about them, but because I felt like they were doing so much to undo the fine work that Peacekeeper Wars did in a way that I wasn't enjoying, that made it harder to enjoy those comics. And since, collecting comics and reading comics is hard for me with the ADHD, I just, let it fall off. But I think it depends on what comes next for the X-Men and how that reflects on the Krakoan era. I know that's something that everyone I know responded unbelievably well to. And so if it is not respected in such a way, I know that's going to be upsetting. I can also liken it to a lot of the stuff that's going on in Doctor Who right now with Russell T Davies taking over as showrunner. A lot of people are saying, yeah, steamroll everything Chibnall did. And Russell's like, no, I respect what came before me. And I'm really curious about what that means in its entirety. He's mentioned stuff like the Eighth Doctor mentioning in his one TV movie that he's half human. What threads is this guy going to pull at, and will we be happy with it? Time will tell, and that's the truth of a lot of these things. So it's going to hugely depend on what comes next for the X-Men, because it's not ending. And that's one thing that we can say for sure. The X-Men are a staple, and whatever comes next, there will be something. So we'll have to see what that'll be.
And just from this image alone, taking a look at what should be the quintessential people standing behind Xavier you expect it to be, Scott and Jean, but instead it's Cable and Emma, with Scott and Jean seated comfortably in front of him. It kind of changes the conversation just a little bit in terms of who's in what position. I think we're going to see a new face of the X-Men, where perhaps it's not Xavier's men anymore. The X stands for who the fuck knows. And I'm pretty excited about that as a guy who changed this show from X is for podcast, which was X-Men is for podcast, to X is for show, which is who the fuck knows what we're going to talk about that week. I don't love the Fall of X. I actually didn't love what was it? It was like House and Powers, then it was Dawn of X, I think. I don't know that I've loved anything after Dawn of X. I think after those first 12s, I was kind of bummed. As Ali Galactic says, X versus Sever is for show. Hubba hubba hubba. And I really, really feel like this could have been a creative death knell for the X-Men if it weren't for the fact that this is it's a franchise at a multi-billion-dollar studio that's never going to let something worth this much money die. But if not, this was a pretty into the ground thing for me. We had a team of 23 at one point. I think maybe 7 currently read comics.
That's the world we're in.
If I could just add to your point about this too, because you're talking when you were talking about how this is Xavier standing in the middle here, this is unrecognizable to many people as Charles Xavier as well.
Yeah.
I am on another podcast sometimes recently where they were talking about the common visual perception of Charles Xavier and him being a wheelchair user, and I'd be like, not for some time. He's not even wearing that helmet anymore. I can see. He's looking kind of daddy here, and this is an unrecognizable Charles Xavier to me. Jean looks like Gates McFadden. This is a lot of stuff, and I think there's a lot of things where even when something is a staple, you can find ways to try and reinvent it, and hopefully something like this and what you're saying. Tori just pointed out he's not even shaving. He's got a beard. Hopefully something like this indicates that even if they are moving away from their Krakoan age that so many loved so much, that they are still going to be moving in interesting new directions.
Well,
we love new directions.
And with that, I think we're definitely at the wrap-up point for this episode. TK, you got anything left?
No, we'll see what happens next week. Next week is the rare week lately where there's just not that much coming out, but there is just Fall of the House of X for X-Men issues. It's been a hot minute since we've had that kind of really slow release from the X office, so we'll have that one issue to think about as a group, and then we'll go from there.
All right, and until then, Kevo, where can everybody find you online?
You can find me at the usual places. Kev O'Reilly, KEVOREALLY. Teak, where can the folks at home find you?
You can find me at TK Elemental. Nico, where can everybody find you?
Nico Action, that's NICOACTION, and I want to thank everybody that was in the audience this whole awesome episode. It's so incredible to have you all with us. You can check the show out at X is for Show on all your socials. And until next time, we got 3 things we need you to do. Number 1, you got to stay safe. Number 2, be brave. Number 3, evolve daily, and we will see you all real soon.
I didn't put up the signal. I'm sorry. I need a second still.
I'll just dance.
I appreciate that. Okay.
We'll see ya.